He banned me from his wedding and sent me the $80,000 bill. He said I didn't fit the aesthetic. He thought the old contractor was just a worn-out checkbook. He was about to find out I don't just build houses, I demolish them too. The smell of sawdust usually calmed my nerves. It was the scent of my life. 30 years spent building things with my own 2 hands. I'm Thomas. I'm a contractor. It's honest work. It built the home I shared with Mary. It paid the endless medical bills when she got sick. I wiped the grease from my hands, locking up my workshop. The exhaustion was a heavy blanket. 3 different jobs, juggling them all, trying to refill the savings Mary's cancer had drained. But it was worth it. My son Mark was getting married. I pictured him at the altar, proud, my boy. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. Mark had always been ambitious. He wanted the finer things, things I couldn't always provide. He went into finance, portfolios, and assets, words that meant nothing to me. I understood wood and concrete. I understood sweat. He understood numbers on a screen. He worked downtown for a big firm, David Chen's firm. Chen was a shark. Mark admired him. I worried. Then he introduced us to Jessica. She was polished, elegant. She glided into my house like a swan, landing in a mud puddle. She talked about old money, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. She looked at my workshop, my calloused hands, my old pickup truck. Her smile was tight, thinly veiled disdain. I felt a prickle of unease, a warning I ignored. I wanted my son to be happy, but something about her felt cold, like touching steel in winter. When I got home that evening, I saw the package on the porch. Thick, expensive cream-colored paper, a silk ribbon. My heart gave a little leap. The invitation, finally. Mark and Jessica had been secretive. An exclusive event, they called it. David Chen was supposed to be there. Big deal for Mark's career. I sat down in my old leather armchair, Mary's favorite chair. I carefully untied the ribbon. I expected cardstock. Embossed lettering. It wasn't an invitation. It was a binder. Heavy, cold. A 3-ring binder, organized meticulously. Tabs labeled venue, catering, attire, flowers, and honeymoon. I flipped through the pages. My confusion morphed into a cold, heavy dread. It wasn't a plan. It was a bill. A detailed breakdown of expenses. $25,000 deposit for a vineyard estate. The most exclusive venue in the state. $18,000 for catering. Filet mignon and lobster. $12,000 for Jessica's dress alone. A dress she would wear once. The numbers felt obscene. But that wasn't the worst part. The honeymoon, 3 weeks in Bora Bora. Overwater bungalows. First-class flights. I reached the last page. The grand total, circled in bold red ink, $80,000. My blood ran cold. $80,000. That was nearly my entire retirement savings. The emergency fund I'd painstakingly rebuilt after Mary passed. It was everything I had left. It must be a joke. A terrible misunderstanding. Maybe this was them asking for a contribution. Then I saw the sticky note. It was attached to the front cover. Mark's handwriting. I recognized the hurried scrawl instantly. Dad, it read. Jessica and her family have decided it's best if you don't attend the wedding. I stopped breathing. The air left the room. I kept reading. They feel your presence might be awkward, given the social circles involved. It's a very sophisticated affair, and you wouldn't be comfortable. Awkward. Sophisticated. My own son, the final line was the knife twist. We need the payment within 30 days to secure the vendors. Be thankful I let you contribute to our future. Be thankful. Banned from my own son's wedding. But expected to finance the entire spectacle. The silence in the house was deafening. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. It wasn't just the money. It was the cold, calculated cruelty. The utter lack of respect. He didn't even have the decency to tell me face to face. He left a sticky note, like I was a chore on a checklist. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I dialed Mark's number. He answered on the 4th ring. Distracted. Annoyed. Hey, Dad. What's up? I'm in a meeting with David. David Chen, the shark. Mark. My voice was rough, thick with emotion. I got your binder. Oh, good, he said, sounding relieved. No shame, no hesitation. So you saw the total? We need that first deposit, the $25,000 for the vineyard by Friday. Otherwise, we lose the reservation. Mrs. Dubois, the planner, is breathing down my neck. He just wanted the check. My heart was breaking, and he was talking about reservations. Mark, I choked out. The note? It says I can't come. You didn't invite me. There was a long pause. I could hear someone talking in the background. Then Mark sighed. The sound of a man dealing with a tiresome burden. Look, Dad, it's complicated. Complicated? I pressed. How is banning your father complicated? Jessica's parents are very high-profile people, he explained, his voice low, as if sharing a state secret. And David Chen will be there. They have a certain image to maintain. This wedding is important for my career. For networking, an image. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm your father. What image am I projecting? That I work for a living? Don't be dramatic, Dad, Mark snapped. His patience gone. The mask slipping. You know what I mean. Don't make this about you. It is about me, Mark, I shouted, standing up. Pacing the room? Explain it to me. Why am I not good enough? You're a builder, he said, the words sharp and cutting. You wear flannel. You drive that rusty old truck. He paused, searching for the words to dismiss me completely. It just doesn't fit with the vineyard aesthetic. The aesthetic, my life reduced to an aesthetic. Jessica's worried you'll embarrass us, he added. The final nail in the coffin. Embarrass him, the boy I taught to swing a hammer. The boy I held when he cried after his mother died. The boy whose expensive education I funded by taking on every grueling job I could find. I felt a cold numbness spreading through my chest. It's just one day, Dad, he continued, his tone dismissive. But this money, this sets up our life together. It's the least you can do, frankly. He added the final insult. It's not like you have a big inheritance to leave me. He was already spending my money, before I was even dead. $80,000, Mark? That's everything I have, I whispered. You know that, after your mother? I couldn't finish. Well, maybe you should have planned better, he said coldly. No empathy, no remorse. Jessica is used to a certain lifestyle. I won't let her down. He was choosing her over me. It was clear as day. And you'll let me down instead? I asked, my voice trembling. You'll bankrupt me. Just pay the bill, Dad, he ordered, his voice flat and final. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I have to go. David is waiting. He hung up. I sat there, the binder heavy on my lap. The silence screamed around me. I felt utterly alone, hollowed out. I looked at the mantelpiece, the picture of Mary and me on our own wedding day. Local park, potluck reception. Broke, but overflowing with love and respect. What would Mary think of the man our son had become? A knock on the door startled me. It was Aunt Clara, Mary's sister. She lived down the street, always meddling, always judging. Thomas? She called out, letting herself in. I heard shouting. Is everything all right? I quickly hid the binder under a blanket. Everything's fine, Clara. She looked around the room, her eyes narrowing. Mark called me, said you were being difficult about the wedding. Difficult. He was already spinning the narrative, making me the villain. He didn't invite me, Clara, I said, my voice trembling with anger. He banned me and sent me the bill, $80,000. Clara gasped. But her reaction wasn't what I expected. 80,000, she repeated. That's a lot of money, Thomas. But it is his wedding, and Jessica comes from a good family. You should support him. Support him? I asked, incredulous. He's ashamed of me, Clara. He thinks I'm an embarrassment. Well, she said, smoothing her skirt, you are a bit rough around the edges, Thomas. Maybe it's for the best. You wouldn't want to ruin his big day. Just pay the money. Keep the peace. For Mary's sake. For Mary's sake. She used my wife's memory against me. The betrayal stung. Even my own family thought I was beneath them. I didn't answer. I just stared at her until she felt uncomfortable and left. The numbness slowly receded, replaced by a cold, sharp anger, a resolve I hadn't felt in years. They thought I was a simple, weak old man. They thought my love for my son made me vulnerable. A target, they were wrong. He wanted me to contribute. Fine. I would contribute, but not in the way he expected. He wanted a dream wedding. I was about to turn it into a nightmare. The next morning, I called my daughter Sarah. She lived a few hours away, a nurse practitioner. Sarah was the spitting image of Mary. Smart, grounded, fiercely loyal. She never liked Jessica. She saw the ambition beneath the polished surface. I told her what happened. The silence on the other end of the line stretched, long, heavy. Then the fury erupted. "He did what?" she screamed. "He banned you and sent you the bill? That manipulative, entitled little snake." And Jessica, I knew she was poison. He said I'd embarrass them, I admitted, and Aunt Clara agrees with him. And Clara is a snob, Sarah yelled. And Mark, how could he? Sarah, I don't know what to do, I admitted. The shame and hurt washed over me. He's still my son. Is it, Dad? Sarah challenged, her voice tight with anger. A son doesn't treat his father like garbage. A son doesn't extort money while spitting in your face. Her words hit hard. She was right. Do not pay them a dime, she insisted. If you do, they will bleed you dry for the rest of your life. This is just the beginning. I'm not going to pay, I said. The decision solidified in my mind. Concrete, hardening. But I'm not just going to refuse either. What are you going to do? She asks. I'm going to teach him a lesson, I told her. A lesson about respect. About consequences. The plan started forming, slowly. I needed leverage. I needed to understand the game they were playing. And I needed to know how to win. A week later, the pressure started. Mark called again. I let it ring. And ring. I needed him to feel the anxiety. The uncertainty. I finally answered, keeping my voice calm, steady. Dad, he said, his voice tight with anxiety. The vineyard called. The deposit hasn't arrived. What's going on? You're going to ruin everything. David Chen is expecting an invitation next week. I can't look like a fool. I know, Mark, I'm sorry. I lied. Feigning distress, playing the part of the overwhelmed, incompetent father, the role he had cast me in. I'm moving some investments around. It's complicated. The bank is dragging its feet. I needed to buy time. I needed them to feel secure, arrogant, complacent. It was a dangerous game. If I failed, I'd look unreliable, just like they thought I was. Mark sighed impatiently. Well, hurry it up. Jessica's having a meltdown, and Miss Dubois is threatening to cancel the cater tasting tomorrow. They need a check. I'll do my best, I said, biting my tongue. Then Mark dropped the bomb. The moment that truly changed everything, the moment the war began. By the way, Dad, he added casually. Too casually, like he was talking about the weather. I had to cover some immediate costs. My stomach tightened. I knew something bad was coming. Jessica's custom jewelry arrived, he continued. Diamonds. They needed payment on delivery. He paused. The silence stretched. So I had to sell the Mustang. My heart stopped. The 1965 Mustang. My Mustang. The car Mary and I had saved for years to buy. The car we restored together. Every weekend. Greasy hands. Laughter echoing in the garage. It was our pride and joy. Our connection to a simpler, happier time. Our history. I had given it to Mark on his 21st birthday, making him promise to cherish it, to keep it in the family. You sold the Mustang? My voice was barely a whisper. The air felt thin, impossible to breathe. I gripped the edge of the workbench, my knuckles white. Yeah, sold it to a collector. Frank, something. Got a great price for it, too. 40 grand, he said cheerfully, oblivious to the knife he had just twisted in my gut. $40,000 for a piece of my soul. Don't worry, he continued. I added the amount to the invoice. You can just reimburse me when your funds clear. It actually helps with the cash flow. Cash flow. He reduced his mother's memory to cash flow. The betrayal was so sharp, so deep, it shattered the last remnants of my paternal love. He hadn't just sold a car. He had sold a piece of my history, a piece of Mary, without a second thought, just to buy shiny trinkets for Jessica. He didn't just disrespect me. He disrespected his mother's memory. That was the moment my guilt evaporated. Replaced by ice, I hung up the phone. My hands were steady now. No more shaking. I called Sarah. He sold the Mustang, I told her. My voice flat, dead. Sarah gasped. Dead, no. No, not Mom's car. How could he? Who did he sell it to? A collector named Frank, I said. The name tasted like ash. It's gone. I took a deep breath. The pain was unbearable, but it fueled my determination. And I'm going to make him regret it. I'm going to burn it all down. Sarah flew in the next weekend. We sat at the kitchen table, the binder between us. Okay, Dad, she said, all business. We need a plan. First, we need to find Frank. We need Mom's car back. We started digging. I used my contacts in the contracting business. I knew the vendors. I made a few calls. Asked who booked the vineyard. Who signed the contracts. I called the vineyard. They put me in touch with Mrs. Dubois, the wedding planner, a formidable woman. Mr. Thomas, she said, her voice sharp, your deposit is late. If we don't receive it by tomorrow, we will cancel the reservation. I explained the situation, the confusion about the funds, the delay from the bank. I played the concerned father. She sighed, exasperated. Very well, but I need a signed contract confirming your financial responsibility. She emailed over the contract and confirmed the chilling truth. Everything was booked, using my name. Mark had listed me as the financial guarantor on every single contract. Did you sign those contracts, Dad? Sarah asked, her eyes wide with alarm. No, I never signed anything. I never saw these documents. We looked at the copies, the signature at the bottom of the page. It was my name, but it wasn't my writing. It was shaky, forced, a poor imitation. He forged your signature, Sarah realized. Horrified, it wasn't just a request anymore. It was a legal obligation. Dad, that's fraud, she whispered. He legally forced you to pay. If you don't pay, they can sue you. They can take the house. They can take everything. This was terrifying. I wasn't just fighting emotional blackmail. I was fighting a legal battle, a battle for my survival. My own son had committed fraud, using my name. I had to prove the forgery, or I would be ruined. We needed more information. We needed leverage. We needed to understand the enemy. Sarah started investigating Jessica, the old money story. It felt thin, too polished. Sarah was relentless. She started digging into financial records. Public information. The truth, Sarah said, scrolling on her laptop. There is no old money. It's a facade, a carefully constructed lie. She turned the screen towards me. It's all credit cards and loans. Her parents are drowning in debt, heavily mortgaged. They live far beyond their means. So they aren't contributing to the wedding? I asked. Not a dime, Sarah confirmed. They're counting on you to finance the whole thing, to maintain their illusion of wealth. Jessica needed Mark, or rather, she needed your savings. We also looked into David Chen, Mark's boss. Ruthless, known for firing people on the spot. Mark was desperate to impress him. The wedding was his stage. I was the unwilling sponsor. They were con artists, and my son was their accomplice. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories to light, because sometimes the truth needs to be exposed. Then came the twist, the real ace up my sleeve, the leverage I needed to destroy their plans completely, the weapon I didn't even know I had. I was going through my old filing cabinet in the workshop, looking for financial documents. Anything related to Mark, anything to help prove the forgery. That's when I found it, tucked away in a dusty folder labeled Future Projects. The deed to the land, years ago, right after Mark graduated college. I bought a piece of land, 5 acres overlooking the river. It was beautiful, peaceful. It was expensive. An investment. My dream was for Mark to build a house there, a place to raise his family, close to me. I helped him design the plans, cleared the land. But then Mary got sick. The project stopped. Grief paralyzed me. The land sat empty, waiting, Mark and Jessica recently restarted the project. They called it their dream house. They bragged about the infinity pool, the state-of-the-art kitchen, the wine cellar. Mark even told David Chen about it, bragging about his assets. They planned to start construction right after the honeymoon, using wedding gifts as the down payment. It was their future, their foundation, but I had never transferred the deed. I forgot, consumed by Mary's illness. The hospital visits, the treatments, the fear, and then the aftermath, the emptiness. I simply forgot. The land, the beautiful, expensive land, the foundation of their future. It was still legally mine. I sat down hard on a stack of lumber, the deed in my hand, a realization dawning on me. I held the keys to their kingdom, and I was about to lock the door. I immediately called my old friend Robert, my lawyer. We'd known each other for 20 years. He handled the paperwork when I bought the house. When I started the business, we met for coffee the next morning. Robert was sharp, meticulous, thorough. I laid it all out. The ban, the bill, the Mustang, the forged contracts, Jessica's debts, David Chen, and the deed. Robert looked at the deed, then back at me. A slow smile spread across his face. "Thomas, this is beautiful," he said, tapping the paper. "The land is yours, 100%. They have no claim to it. They can't build a shed on it without your permission." "And the contracts?" I asked. The anxiety gnawed at me. The fear of losing everything still very real. "The forgery is serious," Robert said, leaning forward, his voice low. "We need to contact the vendors, Mrs. Dubois, inform them the signatures are invalid." "What will happen?" "They will cancel the contracts immediately," Robert explained, "and they will pursue Mark for fraud." "You are off the hook, Thomas." He paused. "But Mark is in serious trouble. He could face jail time, and he will certainly lose his job. David Chen doesn't tolerate fraud." The plan solidified. It wasn't just about canceling the payments. It was about taking back everything they thought they were entitled to. It was about justice, for Mary, for me. A few days later, the pressure intensified. Jessica herself called me. The first time she ever initiated contact. Usually, she treated me like the furniture. Invisible. "Thomas," her voice was like honey. Sweet, sticky, fake. "Mark tells me you're having some trouble with the funds." "It's complicated," I said, repeating the lie. "I want to emphasize how important this wedding is for us," she continued, her voice hardening, the honey turning to vinegar. "It's the event of the season. David Chen, the mayor. Everyone." Then the threat, clear and cold. "If you jeopardize this," she warned, her voice dripping with malice, "not only will you ruin our dream, but I will make sure Mark cuts you off completely, forever." She was willing to destroy my relationship with my son to secure her lifestyle. The cruelty left me breathless. She didn't love him. She loved what I could provide. "I understand, Jessica," I said calmly, refusing to take the bait. "The money will be there." I hung up. Adrenaline surged. They were desperate, scared. Good. They should be. Sarah provided the final piece of the puzzle. The ammunition I needed for the final assault. She was having lunch downtown. A cafe. She overheard Jessica and her bridesmaids. They were sitting at a table near her, laughing loudly, sipping champagne. "He's such a simpleton," Jessica sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "Honestly, I can't believe Mark comes from such blue-collar stock." The bridesmaids tittered. "His father is an embarrassment," Jessica continued, waving her hand dismissively. "He looks like a handyman. And don't get me started on Aunt Clara. Such a busybody." Sarah froze. She slowly pulled out her phone and hit record. "But at least the old man is useful," Jessica laughed. A cruel, ugly sound. "He's basically a walking ATM. $80,000, and he didn't even blink. A walking ATM. That's all I was to them. He should be grateful we're letting him pay for the privilege of being associated with us," she added, her voice cold and arrogant. Then the final confirmation of their greed. "And that land he thinks he's giving us, it's worth a fortune. We're set for life. Mark is so easy to manipulate. He believes everything I tell him." When Sarah played the recording for me later that night, The cruelty, the arrogance, the sheer greed. It solidified my resolve. They deserved everything that was coming to them. There was no turning back now. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. Mark showed up at my workshop the next afternoon, his face pale with panic. He wasn't wearing his expensive suit. He looked rumpled, stressed. "Dad, we have a huge problem," he stammered, pacing the floor. Sawdust kicking up around his expensive shoes. "Mrs. Dubois is demanding the final payment today." The caterer. The florist. "They're threatening to pull out." "I know," I said calmly. I kept sanding a piece of oak. Smooth, steady. "So you need to transfer the money." "Now," he demanded, slamming his hand on the workbench. The wood vibrated. I stopped sanding. I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not going to do that, Mark." He froze. "What? What are you talking about? We have a deal." "I'm not paying for the wedding," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I'm not paying for the honeymoon. I'm not paying for anything." Mark stared at me, speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Then the anger erupted. "You can't do this," he screamed, his face turning red. "You're the guarantor. You signed the contracts." "No, I didn't," I corrected him, my voice calm and steady. "You forged my signature." I checked with Mrs. Dubois. "I have the proof." I paused, letting the words sink in. "That's fraud, Mark." "A felony." He went pale, the blood draining from his face. He knew he was caught. He stumbled back. "You owe me, Dad," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "I'm your son. You stopped being my son when you banned me from your wedding." I retorted, my voice rising. "You stopped being my son when you sold your mother's car to buy jewelry for that gold digger." Mark flinched. "Don't talk about Jessica like that. She loves me." "She loves your money," I shot back. "Or rather, my money. I know about her family's debts. I know this whole wedding is a sham. I know she's using you, and you were stupid enough to let her." He glared at me, his eyes filled with hatred, a look I never thought I'd see on my son's face. Then he used the ultimate weapon. "If you do this," he threatened, his voice low and menacing, "if you ruin this wedding, I swear to God you will never see me again." He leaned closer. "And when we have children, you will never meet them. You will die alone." A bitter old man, just like Aunt Clara said. The threat hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. The thought of never knowing my grandchildren, a pain deeper than any I had ever felt. He wielded it without mercy, but I stood my ground. I wouldn't let him manipulate me anymore. I wouldn't let him use my love as a weapon. "Then I guess I'll die alone," I said, my voice cold, distant. "Get out of my workshop." Mark stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled, leaving behind the echo of his threats, the bitter taste of betrayal, and the realization that I had already lost him. The day of the wedding arrived. Bright, sunny, beautiful. A perfect day for a nightmare. I put on my best suit, the one I wore to Mary's funeral. It felt appropriate. Today was a funeral, too. The funeral of the relationship I thought I had with my son. I didn't go to the ceremony. I couldn't bear to watch him pledge his life to the woman who had destroyed our family. Instead, I waited until the reception was about to begin. I drove to the Vineyard estate, my odd pickup truck looking out of place among the Mercedes and BMWs. Sarah was with me, her hand resting on my arm, giving me strength. "Ready, Dad?" she asked. "Ready," I said. The scene was exactly as I imagined. Lavish, extravagant, completely superficial, white tents draped in silk, crystal chandeliers, an orchestra playing soft classical music, hundreds of guests, designer clothes, champagne, laughter, oblivious. I saw David Chen holding court near the bar. I saw Aunt Clara, looking smug. We walked past the security guard. He looked confused. We weren't on the guest list, but he didn't stop us. Maybe he saw the look in my eyes. We walked into the main tent, the air thick with expensive perfume and money. I saw Mark and Jessica center of the room, basking in the attention, radiant, happy, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to break. I spotted Mrs. Dubois, the wedding planner, stressed, headset on, arguing with the catering manager near the entrance. The moment of truth. "Excuse me, Mrs. Dubois," I said, interrupting them. She turned to me, annoyed. "Sir, if you're a guest, please find your seat. We are about to start the speeches." "I'm not a guest," I said calmly. "I'm the host, the one whose signature was forged on your contracts." Her eyes widened. Recognition, then horror. "Mr. Thomas, we were told you were ill. You were told a lie," I said firmly. "I am not paying for this wedding. My signature was forged. I informed your legal department this morning. The payment is canceled." She stared at me, speechless. The catering manager dropped the tray he was holding. Glasses shattered on the floor. The noise attracted attention. The orchestra stopped playing. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to us. Mark saw me. His smile vanished, replaced by pure horror. He rushed towards me, Jessica trailing behind, confusion and anger on her face. "What are you doing here?" Mark hissed, grabbing my arm. His grip tight, painful. "You're not supposed to be here. Get out. You're ruining it." "I just wanted to make a toast," I said loudly, my voice carried in the silent room. I pulled my arm away, walked to the center of the room, to the microphone on the small stage. I tapped the microphone. The sound echoed through the tent. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady, despite the tremor in my hands. "For those of you who don't know me, I am Thomas, Mark's father." A wave of gasps rippled through the room. Whispers, shock. David Chen raised an eyebrow. "You might be wondering why I'm here," I continued. "As I was explicitly banned from this wedding." I looked directly at Mark. He was frozen, trapped. Jessica glared at me, her eyes burning with hatred. Aunt Clara looked mortified. "I was told my presence would be awkward," I said, quoting the note, "that I didn't fit the aesthetic." I used air quotes, mocking his words. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. But while they didn't want my presence, they wanted my money. I pulled out the binder, the one Mark gave me, held it up for everyone to see. $80,000, I announced. They sent me the bill and told me to be thankful. I let you contribute. The guests shifted uncomfortably, looking at Mark and Jessica, the judgment in their eyes shifting from me to them. "When I couldn't pay immediately," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "my son forged my signature on the contracts, committing fraud, obligating me to pay for this spectacle." The word echoed in the silent room. Fraud. David Chen's face hardened. He knew the implications. Jessica's parents, the Harrisons, looked furious, their high-profile image crumbling before their eyes. "I decided not to contribute," I announced. "The checkbook is closed. The wedding is canceled." Chaos erupted. Jessica shrieked. Shrill. Hysterical. "You can't do this. This is my wedding day. You ruined everything. You horrible old man. You ruined it yourself, Jessica." I said calmly, "When you decided that greed was more important than respect. When you decided that family was disposable." I nodded at Sarah. She connected her phone to the sound system. I pressed play. Jessica's voice echoed through the speakers. Loud and clear. "He's basically a walking ATM. He should be grateful we're letting him pay for the privilege of being associated with us. His father is an embarrassment. He looks like a handyman. And the most damning part, Mark is so easy to manipulate. He believes everything I tell him." The room was stunned into silence. Jessica froze, her face pale with humiliation, her mask shattered, the ugly truth exposed for everyone to see. Mark looked at Jessica, realization dawning in his eyes. The manipulation, the lies. Mark was shaking, ashen. "Dad, please, don't do this. We'll be ruined. We can work this out." "You ruined yourself, Mark," I said, the sadness washing over the anger. "You sold your soul for a lifestyle you can't afford. You sold your family for a woman who despises you." I paused, looking him straight in the eye. "And you sold your mother's memory." I pulled out a picture of the Mustang. Held it up. "He sold this car," I explained to the stunned guests. "The one his mother cherished. The one we restored together, to pay for Jessica's jewelry. That's the kind of man he has become. A few people in the crowd shook their heads in disgust. Then I delivered the final blow. The knockout punch. "And the dream house?" I asked, looking at Mark. "The one you were planning to build on the river? The one you were bragging about?" "It's canceled, too. I'm selling the land." Mark stumbled back, as if I had struck him. "The land? But it's mine. You gave it to me. You promised." "No, I didn't," I said, pulling the deed from my pocket, holding it up. "It's mine. I never transferred it to you, and I never will." David Chen walked up to Mark, his face thunderous. "Fraud, Mark? Forgery? You lied to me about your assets. About the land? You're fired." Jessica's father, Mr. Harrison, marched up to Mark, his face red with fury. "You told us you owned that land. You told us you came from money. You lied about everything. You're a fraud." Mark stood there, paralyzed, exposed. The liar, the cheat, the con artist. Mr. Harrison looked at the chaos. The public humiliation, the financial disaster. He turned to his daughter, his voice cold, sharp. "We're leaving. This marriage is a sham. I will not let you marry this liar. It's over." They stormed out, leaving Jessica sobbing on the ground, her $12,000 dress covered in dirt, a monument to her greed. Mark stood alone, surrounded by the wreckage of his dream wedding. Fiancé gone, job gone, reputation destroyed, future wiped out. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred, despair, and a dawning horror, the realization of what he had done, what he had lost. "Happy now?" he spat. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I just turned and walked away. Sarah, holding my arm. We left him there, alone, to face the consequences of his choices. The music was silent. The party was over. The fallout was spectacular and brutal. The story was all over the local news. Wedding wipeout, father's revenge. Mark and Jessica became the town pariahs, the laughingstock. The vendors sued Mark. Unpaid bills. Forged contracts. The police got involved. Fraud allegations. He avoided jail time. Barely. Robert helped to negotiate a plea deal. Community service. Probation. But he was forced into bankruptcy. He lost everything. His apartment, his car, his career. Aunt Clara didn't talk to me for months. She was embarrassed, humiliated, good. Mark disappeared for a while. I heard through Sarah he was couch surfing. Humbled, broken, alone. I focused on my work. The workshop became my sanctuary. The smell of sawdust and varnish was comforting, a reminder of the life I built, the values I held dear, honesty, integrity, hard work. I tried to find Frank, the collector who bought the Mustang. I tracked him down. He lived in the next state, a gruff, no-nonsense guy. "I paid good money for that car," he said, standing in his garage, surrounded by classic cars. "I'm not selling it back. It was my wife's car," I explained. "My son sold it without my permission. Not my problem," Frank said, crossing his arms. "The deal is done." I left empty-handed. The loss of the Mustang still ached. A constant reminder of Mark's betrayal. A few months later, I sold the land by the river. Excellent price. Much more than I paid. I used the money to set up a scholarship fund, in Mary's name, for young people who wanted to learn a trade, to work with their hands, to build something real. It felt right, honoring her memory, turning something ugly into something good. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a profound sadness, a deep loss. It was a victory, yes, but a heartbreaking one. I had saved my dignity, my future. But I had lost my son, and that was a wound that might never heal. One evening, almost a year later, I was sitting in my armchair, looking at Mary's picture. The house was quiet, peaceful. When the doorbell rang, I opened the door. Mark was standing there. He looked different, thinner, older, tired. No expensive suits. Jeans, a simple t-shirt, work boots. He was holding a small wooden box in his hands. We stood there in silence. A long time. The distance between us felt like miles. "Dad," he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion, unable to meet my eyes. I don't know where to start." He started to cry, deep, racking sobs that shook his whole body. The sound of a man breaking. Finally. "I was an idiot," he choked out. "I was greedy, entitled. I betrayed you. I betrayed Mom's memory. I threw away everything that mattered. For nothing." He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he whispered. "I understand if you never want to see me again." I looked at my son. The anger had faded, replaced by a deep disappointment, but also a flicker of hope. He was finally taking responsibility, finally seeing the truth. "You're right," I said quietly. "You don't deserve it. Not yet." He flinched, but nodded, accepting the judgment, the consequences. He handed me the wooden box. I opened it. Inside was a set of keys and a check for $40,000. "I tracked down Frank," he whispered, his voice breaking. "The collector. He didn't want to sell it back. I had to work 2 jobs, 7 days a week, for a year. I paid him double what he paid me, $80,000. Tears streamed down his face. It took everything I had, every cent I earned. But I got it back." He pointed towards the street. "It's parked outside." I looked out the window, the 1965 Mustang, polished, shining under the streetlight, red paint gleaming. My heart swelled, the pain of the past year melting away in that single moment. I felt Mary's presence beside me, smiling. "I got a job," he continued, finally meeting my eyes. "At the hardware store downtown, stocking shelves, and I'm taking night classes. Construction management." His eyes were clear, honest. "For the first time in years." "I want to learn the trade, Dad," he said, his voice sincere. "I want to work with you, if you'll have me." I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the boy I raised, the boy who used to follow me around the workshop, eager to learn, eager to build. "The road back will be long and hard, Mark," I said, my voice softening, the tears finally falling. "You need to earn back my trust, day by day, brick by brick." "I know, Dad," he said, his voice steady and strong. "I won't let you down again." I stepped aside and let him in. It wasn't a happy ending. The scars were too deep, the betrayal too painful, but it was a beginning. The nightmare was over. The dawn was uncertain, but hopeful. I knew the path to reconciliation would be difficult, but as I closed the door, I knew one thing for sure. Respect and honesty are the only true currency in a family. Sometimes you have to let everything burn down, to clear the debris, to build something stronger, something real in its place. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe.